speak in English or one of these international languages, then they think you are educated. But education is far much more than that. For most part of formal education takes place in classroom or lecture rooms. Some teachers and learners do not seem to see possibilities of teaching and learning taking place beyond that physical, that designated or structured, controlled environment called school, which is made up of schools, classrooms, lecture rooms, and maybe some other area. This makes many students not to be able to connect classroom learning to field or office practice. You ask some students, 20 plus 20, just an example. They will just say, so some of those boys who are not really into the classroom setting will say they don't know. But when you express it in currency, 20 naira plus 20 naira, oh, you will get a good result. They can calculate that one. So it tells you to an extent what people consider formal education or education. To start with, what is education? The online encyclopedia Wikipedia describes education as the process of facilitating learning or the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, moral beliefs, and habits. Educational methods include teaching, training, storytelling, discussion, and direct research. Yes, while some may not necessarily be that, it involves some other things. Education can be formal, it can be informal. For the purpose of this presentation, formal education will be the focus. So what is formal education? Formal education is a structured style of education which takes place under the tutelage and supervision of trained and certified educators who are knowledgeable, who are versed in this and that particular area of study, but that body of knowledge that is organized into curriculum, a chunk of each lesson actually organized so that the learner can be taught, can be guided into assimilating it and making it part of its own development. Where does formal education take place? Formal education usually takes place in structured environment of schools made up of classrooms or lecture rooms. There are also other forms of classrooms in school. We may not call them classroom. Probably we may call them laboratories. We may refer to some as maybe assembly hall. Sometimes some sort of teaching and learning take place on the sports field, on the playground. Sometimes we extend the classroom, which is beautiful, into some other places. In like field trip, we have to go for excursion, we have to go for educational trips. Now, some of them also have workshops, and in some cases, staff room can be of use. So in other words, the way we are going, we know that education cannot be limited to a traditional classroom. So the definition of classroom may have to change. Of course, it's already changing if we're really paying attention to it with the way things are, especially in the digital age, but that we can now talk about some other things, some other kind of classroom, probably e-classroom, virtual classroom, the way we, some limitation of the physical classroom, of the traditional classrooms, which I refer to as traditional classroom actually. There's the limitation of various approaches to learning. There's limitation, the flexibility. You tend to do everything the way it fits into the classroom. If it doesn't fit into the classroom, you may not be able to, get it done. Taking for instance, sometimes you want to teach about plants, and the best you do is to either look into a textbook or draw something on the board. Okay, I think that's part of the evolution. When we talk about board now, we could be talking about not necessarily blackboard, Now we have marker board. Then we maybe also be talking about electronic board, interactive board, and all that. But for a traditional classroom, you know, the flexibility of various approaches. If you cannot, you may not be able to see the plant, but it can be drawn on the board, maybe in black and white, or probably I'm just talking about the fact that there are some limitations, flexibility of the approach of the learning of the material of the teaching aids and all that. Okay, there is another point is the physical limitation. You have to be in a class to learn. You are not there, nothing, you cannot learn. I think that is another limitation. So you have to be there physically to really take the lecture or take the lesson. Limitation of space, of course. I think United Nations recommend for a good, for an ideal classroom, 24 students, or is it pupils now? 24 pupils, 24 students to a lecturer, to a teacher, especially in a class, 24 students for 24 pupils to a class. But although there are some other situations whereby we have to be open into a bigger space. But at the developing stage, 24 is recommended by United Nations. I hope if my information is correct. But I think we hardly have that, especially in some parts of the world in which we find ourselves. Okay, another thing is when we have physical classroom, we discover that some students or some pupils do not want to go to class, do not want to go to school because of the experience of bullying that they sometimes have. So some of them will rather not either see anything or not feel at home, not participate, and this one will hinder the learning and teaching process. Recently, the risk of infection, COVID-19 is one, and in some parts of the world, schools have to be closed down, while in some other parts, of course, they already found a way around it. But with us, any school that is, and especially when there is epidemic, where there is pandemic or all that, then it may be risky to really float a traditional or physical classroom. In some other parts of the world, issue of security. I'm not going to talk about. I don't want to give example of some places that are going through some hard times now, but in some other parts in which we are, the challenges of students going to school, and the next thing you hear that some people that are called the unknown gunmen, some faceless sort of people, start kidnapping or maybe maiming or killing, you know. So these are some of the challenges that a traditional classroom exhibits. Now, over the years, formal education in particular, seem to be going through some levels of evolution. It's evolving, actually. Many people tend to see that what we have, if we really want to meet up with the demand of what we have, what is required, then there are things we may have to adjust. One of them are some proponents of the 3 A's of formal education. The advocates of 3 A's are of the view that academics is not enough. That for you to have a complete package of education, you have to combine academics with athletics, with art. I will explain that. Academics, yes, the literacy thing, reading and writing, you know, being able to manipulate figures, you'll be able to construct language, English, and ideas, put ideas together, and all that. Academics that we all know. I think in many parts of Africa, I think we are good with that. But athletics just is used to cover various sporting and sport-like activities, talking about the field thing, or football, sports, all. At least we expect a student to have an idea of, to be good and be trained in one kind of sport or game. Are in the advanced in some advanced country in the Western world, you can be given admission to study in a school because of your sporting ability, because you're good in football, baseball, basketball, well, one of these, and you are considered. They offer you scholarship. But it seems in some of our or some other environment, that is not applicable as long as your academic is not somebody quickly come to my head, and that was George Weah. George Weah of Liberia. George Weah came into politics, you know, his achievement in the sporting, especially in football. Or that should be the first, the BBC, the first African man. He got that award. After some time, he decided to go into politics, and before you know it, he was doing well for a while until he decided to contest for the office of the president of Liberia. His academics actually affected him. It was used against him that he was not good enough for that post, because he's not really academically sound to really handle that office. And to prove a point, he had to return to school, got his papers, dusted his papers, and get back into and recontested. He first lost. Madam Sirleaf, Johnson Sirleaf, won the first time. Then after her tenure, George Oponwe came up. Another aspect which these people are advocating is the art. Art, for them, art is to cover various aspects of arts. When we talk about performing arts, we talk music, dance, drama. A candidate, a student should know one of such. When you talk about visual art, is it graphics? Is it designs? Is it sculpture, a painting, and all that? And it can come in various forms. So for them, they think a formal education will be complete when you combine these three factors: academic with athletics with art. They are just suggesting that you may agree with them, you may choose not to, but they think that is what will help to have a wholesome and decade. Some other people came up with these, the debate for or against STEM or STEAM. The proponent of STEAM wants arts included, so that we'll not just keep talking about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics alone, but we're going to find a way of blending arts into it. And they said we should have science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. They think it will be more wholesome, it will be more complete when you have education in that form. Now, another group of people, especially several educators, came up with this idea of 21st century education. According to this lady called Sarah Helliman and the other people who worked together with her in their presentation, they said 21st century education cannot be fully defined because it keeps changing, it keeps evolving. But they did not fail to give us some tips about what it looks like and what is supposed to roll into. One, a 21st century education is one that responds to the economic, technological, and societal shift that are happening at an ever-increasing pace. If education is to say, if we are to, our education is supposed to remain relevant, then it must be able to face, to tackle the economical, technological, and society challenges or realities that we have around us. Another point they made about that is that it's an education that sets children up to succeed in a world where more than half of the jobs they have, that they will have over their career don't even exist yet. There was a debate in one of the class I handled some years ago, and some people said, "Oh, computers and all that digital world, people are losing their jobs, and more people will lose their because machines will take over." Well, I seem to see differently, but I think I would rather do a paraphrase of one of these. Is it law of motion or law of energy? The energy can neither be created or destroyed. I think jobs can neither be created, career can neither be created or destroyed, but they evolve. They can be changed from one form to the other. Some jobs are evolving as well. Careers are evolving, but they may not necessarily mean that there are no jobs, but the jobs that are available are changing from one form to the other. And if we don't really get ready to really to get the necessary education that will make us to be relevant, we just discover that what we've learned over the years will not be relevant in this dispensation. And finally, they said, in short, it's an education that provides students with the skills and competencies they need to thrive in the 21st century. Now, that leads us to 24th century skills. 24th century education, like I said, they said it's difficult for everyone to really pin it down to be this or that. But 21st century education seems to be around the 21st century skills. Educators, business leaders, and governmental organizations have come up with sets of skills, abilities, and learning that are regarded as being central to the 21st century education. This is due to our ever-changing society. These skills differ from traditional academic skills in that they are not primarily content knowledge-based. In fact, if we really want to get them to the school setting, we still have to go around, study, and find a way of bringing it. But currently, they are not even part of the curriculum that we are currently running. And it's not about this part of the world alone. It's not the African setting alone. It's also evolving. It's also being introduced in other parts of the world. So what are these 21st century skills? According to Wikipedia, these skills have been grouped into three. The first one is learning and innovation skills. This involves critical thinking and problem solving, communication and collaboration, creativity and innovation. You agree with me? None of this is irrelevant. None of this can be done away with if we really want to be relevant as educators, as assessors in this dispensation, the digital era, the digital age. Another one is digital literacy skill. The digital literacy skills, this involves information literacy, media literacy, information and communication technologies, talking about ICT literacy. So we all need all this put together for for to 21st century skills. Anyone that graduates from the regular school and is not able to do some of these things is kind of considered an educated illiterate. Please, man, don't mind my use of language. That's what people refer to some of those people are. So because we have to really be up to date. You can't use the current technologies. You cannot really put them to, you cannot use them to advantage. Then it looks like you are out of place. You are nowhere to be found. And finally, the last grouping, career and life skills. Talking about flexibility and adaptability, initiative and self-direction, social and cross-cultural interaction, productivity, and accountability. So a whole lot is put together. Some of these, in a way, we touch them in schools, but not directly, actually, and not deeply. I have some engineering, some of my colleagues, some of my friends in the engineering field. Sometimes when I see some of them working in banks, not really as engineers, but as cashiers and bankers, and I begin to wonder, one of the things that led them there, they discovered that some of the tests, the aptitude tests that are given to them, it's easier for engineering students to handle than some other people, in other fields, those in the social sciences and all, and that, simply because by their training, it calls their attention, it helps to train them to pay attention to some minute details that others may not pay attention to. So to an extent, it brings out some of this innovation that we're talking about in the 21st century. But they've adapted their learning into some other field, which in some cases, some people cannot do any other thing apart from what they learn in school. And they said that if the only thing you can do with your life is what you learn in school, nowadays you are considered as not being educated. Please, I have an interference. You can mute your mic down there, please. Thank you very much. Now, characteristics of 21st century assessment. Now, if the education is evolving, then the assessment will also evolve. If we allow our assessment to just remain on pen and paper, or pencil and paper, as the case may be, or just being black and white, then we may not be doing justice to the testing or to the assessment. For instance, a student who is trained, who went through the curriculum, especially who taught the content, especially in the traditional, in the 21st century learning and all that 21st century skills, we may not test such appropriately if we choose to use the traditional paper, just write the whole thing on paper and submit kind of approach, what we call pen paper test. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Even in some situations whereby we say, okay, alternative to practical, like some examination body does, it may not be doing justice to the assessment. So 21st century assessment must have to be relevant. We have to be multifaceted. Talking about the fact that yes, you can use paper, pencil, paper, pen to an extent, but we need to also bring some other approaches than that. Probably we'll bring in multimedia, we'll bring in electronics, we do bring in computer, we may also bring in some other approaches to really have a full idea of testing the level of assimilation or the achievement of this candidate or students at this period of time. So it has to be some multifaceted. One approach, one method may not be able to do justice to it. Then we may be also talking about interactive item construction. Yes, so it's a pity that we are still testing candidates and students, learners, the same way, almost the same way we have been doing 40 years ago. And some students, well, candidates will try to read past questions that have been generated years ago that are no longer relevant to the realities on ground now. So when you do that, we may not be doing justice to assessment. So when I talk about interactive item construction, I am referring to our items. Items should come in other forms. For instance, rather than just writing in text alone, we can also come with graphics. We can come with sound. Okay, for those who study music, for instance, many have this idea of running music on just being able to sight read the scale, but not being able to play the music. So I think that one is also one-sided. It may not be good enough. So for such people who are into that field, I think it will be better. It will be very realistic for them to also have an opportunity to either play the music or compose their own music, which can be played, which can be listened to, and all that, not so that it will not just be a whole lot of theory and without being able to apply it accurately, especially in the field. Then another one is interactive interview session. It's a pity that some learners may not be able to express themselves enough when it comes to writing. But when it comes to oral presentation, interview session, they tend to do well. Of course, for a complete package, yeah, one should be able to have a certain degree of achievement on both written and oral. But if we just want to choose written alone to decide the fate of some of these candidates, then we may judge them wrongly. We may not have a good assessment for them. Another point is that 21st century assessment should also include hands-on demonstration of skills. Hands-on demonstration of skills. How can some of these candidates, how can they really do this, what you've taught them, what you have helped them, what you have taught them over a period of time? To what extent can they put it into practice? We should be able to create assessment in such a way that it will take care of that. I think that's also relevant to the practical demonstration of skills, depending on the area of training. I have some colleagues who study, I'm not very familiar with their field, but especially those who study mass communication. And because they study mass communication doesn't mean they can always appear on screen. Some of them cannot handle it. Some of them rather go behind the screen. Some cannot do some other things that you expect that those who in that field should naturally be able to do because of their training. So, but if we have this practical demonstration of their skills, it can, to an extent, help those who have that latent ability to put in what they've learned into practice. 21st century assessment may include multimedia-based testing. By this, I mean it's one of the multifaceted approach I'm talking about. all our items may not necessarily have to be in written alone. Some may be audio, some may be visual, some should be able to combine some when I was talking about interactive item construction, rather than just having the diagram and the text. Candidates should be able to have something like, okay, probably a part of the human body. You can bring out all the organs and all that, and a candidate is supposed to arrange such into the right places, the right positioning of all the organs of a human body where they actually belong. So I think this one, the multimedia approach, the interactive and the multimedia approach will really bring out the better part of candidates if we want to test, if we also introduce that into our testing. And for some of these things, the last point, we will combine many of them. Computer-based testing can help in putting many of these together, especially when we cannot really get to the physical place, the actual place, and all that. So our classes, our traditional classrooms, our lecture room will have to go wider. In fact, we'll open up the whole world to our learners if we introduce some of these things, especially the computer-based testing, into our curriculum. I know it's challenging in this part of the world, the challenge of electricity, the challenge of the facility, the machine, the expensive machines here and there. Before you get settled, another software is already, the one you are using is outdated, you have to upgrade and all that. It's a fast moving world. So, but these are some of the things, elements of 21st century assessment. In addition to that, skills for the 21st century for education and assessment. For educators to remain relevant in 21st century education, acquiring computer-related skills is not an option. Information technology skill is required. That includes the following: the computer presentation skills, computer operation skills, internet skills, virtual meeting skills. Computer presentation skill. When I say computer presentation, you don't necessarily have to know everything about the computer, but especially as it affects educators and assessors, I think the one that directly affects us, I think those presentation in terms of as simple as PowerPoint presentation and some other presentation software, I think it should be part of us. We should be able to acquire that skill. Another is that we should be able to have general idea of how to operate digital devices, especially the computer. We should be able to keep files, save files, close, delete, and all that. Manage our files, know how the computer works, and all that. In some schools, for instance, the blackboard is giving way to whiteboard, and some have graduated from not even using the whiteboard, the marker board. They moved to interactive, computerized, digital interactive board, where you can bring in, or you give you serve as good teaching aid for teachers and to help the learners. Internet skills. This one is no longer an option. We have to be versed on how to use the internet, because from there we gather so much information. Libraries, physical libraries used to be of help, but physical library easily go into extinction. I mean, easily gets back into history rather than giving current information or the future. But most of this, when I told a librarian some years ago, I said, so the books you have are outdated. So no, don't say that. So because in library sciences, information is information. Some people are interested in what you call outdated information. That's what they're after. That's what they need. So it's still relevant as far as they were concerned. But for some of us, wow, it's as if reading, going into history. But history is still good. Like someone said, if you know history, you know where you're coming from, and it will help you to even focus on the future. And finally, on this, virtual meeting skills. Virtual meeting skills. Most of the electronic classrooms we have now, they are usually on the internet, and it is in the virtual meetings, virtual classrooms, virtual schools, and all that we have now. So candidates or students, learners may not be caged in a traditional classroom anymore, but they will make the whole world, will make everywhere their classroom. Yes, we can argue that, well, some of these things are not controlled environment, but the control environment is more of, I think it's more about the learner than the teacher, you know. But in another sense, when we're able to create the kind of environment we want for for lectures to take place, it's as good as a classroom. So nowadays we may think of doing several things like floating online classes, online schools, online laboratories, and all that. Of course, a lot of collaboration from various parts of the world. In conclusion, educators and assessors have to be ahead in shaping the society. We cannot afford to be left behind. We have to really be ahead with this game. Or for us to remain relevant, we have to really key into the digital age, the information age, and get all that get our arsenal full of all that we require to really deliver. So assessment, 21st century assessment, 21st century educators, we have to take a different approach for it to really meet up with what we have nowadays. And in order to do that, we have to individually and collectively, like IAIIEA is offering us this platform. These are part of the collaborations that we can do to add value to ourselves, to see the latest trend, and see how we can really get it done. Before I close, I quickly remember when we talk about flexibility of examination. And one of the ways we sometimes it's not really our fault that we may pass the wrong judgment on some of these candidates is that we don't know the state of their mind. When a candidate, for instance, is bereaved of someone, and you ask him to come and write an examination because you schedule the time, you may not get the best of that candidate. So, but CBT, for instance, will help you. If it's online examination and some other thing, you can just pull out and reschedule the examination to when you're in the best frame of mind to offer your best. So, but for now, we'll just use that to judge them, and that does it. So we may have to be a bit flexible in our approach to assessment, especially when it comes to this 21st century demand for us. So to remain relevant, we have to embrace 21st century education and assessment. Things cannot be done the same way while we expect different results. As we do all that's necessary, I believe that in one way or the other, we'll have added value. Thank you very much, and thank you for your participation. I hope we've learned one thing or the other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Muyo. I did mention when I was.
Yes, thank you very much. We're listening. Peace.
Yes, I'm with you.
All right, yeah.
Thank you so much.
I didn't hear the last part of your comment.
Okay, I said I did mention before you started that you're a seasoned teacher, even though I didn't know you as a teacher, but I've heard you mention a number of times when you used to teach. So you could still see the passion of teaching.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
seriously.
We are so grateful for the teaching. It's
Thank you
time
very
for
much.
question and answer, everyone. Just like we usually do. If you have a question or you have an addition to what has been said, you can drop us a chat or you use the raise of the hand feature so we can unmute you from our end so that you can ask your question. Questions and observations and addition. Okay, I think questions are already in from the chats.
I'm looking for them. All right.
Oh, sorry, I'm just seeing someone's comments that the audio is low. So sorry for that. I think it's
Oh,
better now.
sorry about that.
I
I
should
didn't
think
pay
it's better
attention.
now. Okay. All right. I'll read some of the questions here.
All right, sir. All
and
right.
then we'll pick it up from there. Dr. Abiodun Adeshino is asking, education beyond the classroom setting. How do we develop or design curriculum package to encompass the components of such education beyond the classroom?
All right. Curriculum package. Well, it's actually the same process involved in developing that we use to develop the one we are currently running. It's a process, and we say where there is a will, there is a way. When we together as assessors, as an association, or as experts, we come together, we push for this, and we let the authority that is saddled with this responsibility know the advantages and the realities on ground. That's one of the ways in which we can go about it. In the history of education, education is actually meant to it's actually meant to develop the man so that it will be relevant to a society. So if our education system that we're running or the curriculum we're running is not making one relevant enough, I think there's always room for revamping or revisiting our curriculum to really bring things in, just like we always have, or we've had in some number of times. It's not the same, it's not entirely the same thing that we have been teaching over the years that remains now. We especially if one is an innovative teacher, you don't even wait, you don't limit yourself to some of these materials as written materials which have been published many years back, but you look for current trends which can really drive home the point. So I think it starts with our will. When we are willing and we push it and then call attention of those in the saddled with that responsibility, we call the attention to it. And curriculum developers who are saddled with this responsibility, they see the reason behind it, and it will be done. So it's actually a process. It's not just waking up one day and just decide about it, but like I said, it will start with a will, and sometimes we have to even debate it. We'll come up with various seasoned educators to argue for or against some of these things. I hope I answered the question to Anne. I hope you're satisfied with my answer.
I hope so too. If you are not satisfied, you can please let us know.
Yes.
I can see some answers already raised. I'm going to come back to those, but let's take another question from the chats before we come to the people who would like to ask verbally. I can also see a lot of positive comments. Thank you for the feedback, and thank you for the constructive feedbacks too. It's encouraging. Thank you so much. So I'm going to take the question from Ogungbero Matthew. He's saying, thanks for the deep and powerful presentation, sir. I think the education beyond classroom should focus on the total well-being. I beg your pardon. I think the education beyond classroom should focus on the total well-being, employability, and training to be useful to the society. My question goes thus: what are the role of parents in ensuring the reality of this, especially parents in the rural area, and what are the role of the government? I think I'm particularly interested in this question As
All right.
far as everybody has a personal interest, there is drive to grow. But there are people in the rural environment that what they see is not enough for them to even push themselves to growth. So I think that is me reframing the question. I don't know if I'm permitted to do
Yeah,
that.
it's good. It's good. I think all good. Thank you very much. Thank you for that question, sir or ma'am. Sorry, ma'am. Please pardon me. I don't know whether male or female, but thank you for that question. Looking at, I like the introduction to the question. Actually, I think, and that's the focus: the total well-being, employability, training, and training to be relevant, to be useful in the society. But talking about parent, let me start with that of parent. Well, I read something on a post this evening. You know, in this part, we for those of us in Nigeria, primary six in the primary school, the first 6 years is actually fading. Primary six is actually fading away because parents want their children to finish up on time. I wouldn't fault the parent purely because by the time candidates or potential students finish from school and they want to seek for employment, you see age limit placed on the by the employer. You must not be more than this. You must have to between ages 18 to, you know, and in order for parents to really meet up with this, what they quickly do is, okay, see how fast you can do this education and, you know, and get a job. So you wouldn't purely fault parents for skipping classes or rush their words to finish up school, even when their brains are not developed enough to carry some of those things. And some of them mentally, they are not matured enough even to really be among people like that. But education, facilitation, we need to really call their attention to this. Probably platforms like this, seminars like this, probably we can even hold a program even on this platform for parents on some of this. Now, when parents know the need, understand what is at stake, they will also make effort to really get the best. Now, thank God for the internet, for the internet and the digital society. You can actually attend lectures from any part of the world. Some people even go to the extreme. Somebody was at the beach, attending lecture at the beach, and it was, you know, just under his shade, put on his dark shade and got his laptop, and off he goes. It was there, people were all around, but he was just concentrating on his computer. And you know, but so if parents really know what is at stake, I believe even in the rural area, they will want to see how best they can get it. You may not be able to attend, you have opportunity to be in one of the Ivy League schools, university, but you can see what you can do at your own level to apply for some of this and attend when you are still in another part of the world. So for parents, I think we have to educate them about some of this, sensitize them. And for the technology involved, we may, as long as you are able to afford as much as a phone device, a cell phone, especially that can accommodate various software application. Probably it could be Windows-based, it could be iOS, Apple-based, it could be Android-based. As long as that can internet-enabled device, you are good to go. You may not have everything, but you have a chunk, a large degree of what you want to do. So schooling or having some of these facilities, having this 21st century assessment or education may not necessarily mean you have to break the bank. It doesn't mean you have to, make sure your small generating power, some of the solar panels can be used to generate enough power to run some of these things and get them working. So it may not be a perfect situation, but I believe we are moving. Now, government, for the government, the government role, I think this one is, the government is still related to the first question. There are ministries, educators, or people who are in this field already, who are managing government offices in terms of education. And education could be revamped. We can call their attention to some of these things. We have to really review some of these things so that we can really be relevant in this part. That during the COVID-19 era, one of the things I kept hammering is that the world is not waiting for us. Every society has decided, you decide where you want to be. You don't want to be in the forefront, you want to follow the lead, or you get out of the way. So nobody is even waiting for anybody anymore. So for our government, we have to sensitize the government. We have to get people in authority to really see the importance, the relevance of some of these things. And I believe by the time we start to demonstrate some of this and show them how other parts of the world are moving, I think the government, those in government, those in the public office, want to do something. Because by the time you start comparing them, their own product to those products we are producing using 21st century education and 21st century skills and assessment, I believe they will see a whole lot of difference. I hope I did justice to that question.
Thank you so much. I smiled when you mentioned sensitizing the government. I wonder how that can be done in this part of the world, because it seems the government has more voice than any other person does. But what do I know? We'll get there really, where we get there.
It's really an abnormality. Government should always, it's not just like any organization. A government should always wait for, you always set their mind to feedback. Feedback. When there is an input, there is processing, and the output you are expecting did not come out, then you have to go back to your input. Don't just check the processing. You have to do the process. You have to go back to your input. Like we have in the computer world, we have garbage in, garbage out. So if you are not seeing the kind of result you're expecting, then you have to revisit your input. So I think the government should be a listening government. If a government doesn't listen to the citizens, then you cannot get they cannot even get the best of themselves. So I think it's an abnormality for government not to be paying attention to trends, to stakeholders, and to the citizenry on how things should be done.
Thank you, sir. Let's go to the people raising their hands. Can we have Dr. Aggie? Please go ahead with your question, ma. Dr. Aggie, are you there, ma?
She can just unmute and speak us.
Hello.
Oh, okay.
Oh, madam, welcome. Ma.
Good evening, presenter.
Good evening, ma.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say thank you for the lucid and mind-blowing presentation this evening.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
I just want some clarifications from your presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
If you can still project your
slide
on assessment skills for the 21st century.
All right,
I want to clarify some things there. I want you to clarify some things there, some points there. So still
I wish you were able to pick that point. I'm not able to share my screen right away, but if you can pick, I think I should be able to remember.
You made mention of hands-on demonstration skill and then practical demonstration skill, something like that.
Yes, ma'am.
So what's the difference between the two? And then secondly, can we categorize those two under performance-based assessment?
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, ma'am. They are both related. There are some fields that they are actually practical based. Yes, we when we talk about informal education, some of those things are more pronounced there. But in formal education, there are some fields that are actually more of practical based. Now, when we talk about hands-on, practical based approach is to a large extent hands-on.
Yes, that's why. Hello.
But not all hands-on are actually okay. Yes, ma'am. You're still with me, ma'am?
Yes, I am. I am.
Okay. So for instance, if a candidate is asked to write a composition, and the person puts it in writing, and probably it has to, they can get to the level of, okay, do an oral presentation. We can refer to that one as well as hands-on.
Okay.
Okay, we can also, but we may not totally refer to it as practical. Why?
Okay.
Because it's still in its audio and written form. But when it comes to the one that is fully practical, it may have to do with equipment, may have to do with machines.
Okay. Hello.
May have to be with arranging methods and all that together. So these are just some of the idea. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So they are related actually, but they are not like exactly the same.
Interference.
Now, the one you talk about performance.
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that.
Performance based.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I think they actually fit into the performance-based assessment. But you know, like I said, it's just an element. We cannot subject all assessment to performance-based, but to a large extent, performance-based, I think will produce better assessment, better result than purely paper, pencil, pen, paper, or kind of assessment mode.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, ma. Because of restraint of time, we'll take just 3 more questions to wrap up for tonight. So let me allow, I don't know the title, so permit me to just call the name I can see. Felix Matthew. Sorry, Felix. I can't even pronounce the other name. Felix Kwate or something. Felix Kwate. Please go ahead with your question, sir.
Just asking for the right pronunciation so that I don't murder the name next time.
All right. Are you
please
there?
Unmute. Felix, please, you can unmute, and you are still muted. You're still muted. Please unmute and ask your question. Uh-oh.
Are you there?
Yeah, okay.
All right, I think he's here. Please, before you go ahead with your question, please help me with the name. How do I pronounce that?
Save your head.
Yeah.
That's not very clear. You may have to say that again.
I think the network is messing this up.
The network is bad.
All right. We have you. We can hear you now.
Okay, I think while we allow him get through with his network, let's take the next person. We'll come back to you, Mr. Felix. Can we have Bukola Bukola Ato Batele. we're going to come back to you, Felix, Mr. Felix, sorry. But while we save the time, let's take...
Yes, ma'am.
After battalion, I don't know.
No, it was in error, please. I don't have any question yet.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. Then let me take the question from the chat while...
Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay, yes,
Mr.
it's
Felix
clear now.
Cotti.
Very clear. So I'm
Yes,
asking...
The pronunciation of your name, the correct pronunciation of your name.
It's quarter, just like quarter.
All right, Felix Cotti.
Thank you so much, Dr. Felix.
All right.
I'm grateful for this presentation, and I'm asking if our facilitator is on our page. Thank you.
Okay, you mean the slides?
No, if you are in a group, on the group page, the IAIIE group page.
All right. Okay, you want to be added there?
No, I'm there. I'm asking whether you are there.
I'm there. I'm there. I'm part of that.
Because I'm much interested in assessment, and that's why
I'm also on the platform. I'm on the platform. All right. You want us to engage there?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. Okay. We'll extend it from there.
Thank you, sir. Bless you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, sir.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to take this last question from Okpayemi Oyekon.
Okay.
Nigerian situation, it's pretty difficult flowing with the information age. What do we do, or how do we meet up with best practices?
Actually, I know there are challenges, but we cannot just afford to wait behind. We still have to keep working with what is available. We may not have all the sophistication, all the sophisticated devices that's required to do some of those things. But like I always encourage people, as small as having an internet-enabled handheld phone, I think we are good to go. We are good to go. I was facilitating on a program on another platform about the use of your phone, the best use of your mobile phone. And we have to really delve into several areas in which, and one of the areas I mentioned, I explained in that presentation was about use of your handheld device, your mobile phone, for education purposes. And sometimes, in some cases, especially if you are going to use if you want to use it for assessment, there are ways in which we can use either existing programs, or talking about applications, or we can design ours to fit our own taste to get this done. So we may not have all the sophistication, but with what we have, at least for you to be on the for you to be around, to be part of this presentation this particular time, shows to an extent that you can also do something. So as easy as using PowerPoint presentation, like I always tell some teachers, rather than running your lecture severally, why don't you have recorded versions of all your lectures? So even if you are not there, you can just send one to send the topic or the lesson for that particular time to your learners at that particular time. or you can make it, they can use other platform to also respond. Okay, so we may not have all that we wanted, all that others are having, but with the little we have, especially with the internet, I think we can do something. I think we should start from there. So for us, please, let us do something. So make this thing very workable. So if you can use a small phone, a device to do that, how much more when you have the whole sophistication we're talking about? I was frustrating somewhere. My internet, I don't know what was wrong with this computer I was using. So I had to revert to the phone to finish the presentation. Thank God I had the backup from there. So, well, we have challenges. Government may be moving at snail speed. They may not really be helping situations. The society may not quickly appreciate it. I think there was a book. It's a book titled Men Born Before Their Time. Some people may not appreciate it first, but later in future, you just discover that it became the in thing. So please, we must look for all the possible ways to surmount all the challenges. The challenge of power, the challenge of the device, the challenge of the personnel, the challenge of the government decision and all that. I believe with time, we get to resolve all that. But let's start from where we are with what we have. Let's use our internet-enabled phone. We can move to laptops, to phablets, to iPad, to interactive board, to especially the internet has actually made a lot of things workable. And the ability of some of these handheld devices, digital devices, to also connect to the internet. And especially you can download and install several applications that will help you to work. I sometimes take interest in just experimenting with some of this software. I came across one that should be about 7 years ago. That one is called Photomats. That Photomats, when you see a linear equation and you place it, you just snap it on your screen, capture your screen, it will break it down to its lowest. I mean, it will break it down to the lowest. I tried it the first time, it worked. I said, no, it's not true. I tried it another time, it worked. I just heard about it. Okay, I was reading a platform where I got it and I applied it and it worked. So let us make use of some of these things that are already available and become an application from using internet-enabled devices, digital devices, then we are good to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think as I was scrolling through the chat, I read something like, I like debating oral assessments, and I think it's a good one for us to think through on maybe having a debate around assessments generally. Then maybe oral assessments could be one of the highlights for that particular debate. So it has been noted and we'll consider it. I said one more question, and we had Mrs. Bukola out. So let me take this other one that came in along the line. This will be the last question for tonight. What is the role from Okpe Laje? What is the role and impact of public-private partnership in achieving best practices in education? I believe this could be a way out.
Yeah. I agree with you. You know, when I was answering the question, I was thinking about ourselves first, what we can do from our own end. Yes, there are things others can do as well. There are things corporate organizations can do based on government policies. Some of them have social responsibilities and some corporate responsibilities, which they also discharge. So rather than some of them doing some of these so-called reality shows and all that, we can give them intellectual things to do. One of the reality shows that I appreciate over the years was Apprentice Africa. Apprentice Africa teaches you about business. They guide you on how to run business. They give you all the instructions. You appear in the boardroom and they question you how things went wrong. The leader of the team is asked to really pinpoint what went wrong, and if he's not able to do, he's fired. I mean, it tells you about business. It tells you about how things run. So rather than all this fashion show, music, some funny music concert, that we can just channel some of this, into it. So we have to sell the ideas to them. It has to still come from us. So if we are not at the top of the game, to say, look, you can make more value for your money, rather than just, oh my God. Some people, there was a debate some years ago, intellectual debate. Was it University of Lagos and something? And the winner was given a laptop. But when when there was a fashion, beauty contest, went with a lot of millions and a car, even won a car. At the end of the day, you see, it just tells you the level in which some of our people in office and some of this organization think. Of course, they are promoting their own business, but we can also sell these ideas to them. So it has to still come from us. So if we bring it, we can share it with them that, look, if you sponsor, you furnish this, or you can sponsor this, we'll get more in the society rather than some of this waste of money, especially when it comes to entertainment. People just entertainment, anything goes. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we are so appreciative.
That is for all of us. That's for all of us.
Yes, for everybody, actually, for everyone that contributed,
much.
everyone that asked questions, everyone that participated as well, and as for everyone too that has learned something and they are willing to take it beyond just this platform. He mentioned something as he was rounding up. If we can encourage these people doing, what's it called? What's that thing he mentioned just now? He was talking about context. Yes, thank you. And you see the likes of people spending their life saving to get data to watch shows like BB Niger. If we can channel that energy into education, don't you think it will be a better one? It will.
Of course.
So let's just do it better, and I believe Nigeria will also rank high in education. All right, because of time,
I saw a question somewhere. Can I quickly attend to it? That one from Babatunde. So I hope we can see that one clearly. Did you say that? How can public schools move from traditional teaching and learning method into in order to be at the same pace with private? It still boils down to government policy, but like I said, we have to push it. We have to push it. Even if it gets to the point that we have to go on protest, maybe we have to use it. You speak the language the government understand to get it done. But looking at us individually, I think parents may sometimes have to look for some other means by probably hiring, just probably hiring private teachers, who can do some of this, or probably during the holidays. Why don't we just get a private school that can offer lessons in this area, or private tutors who will get this done? So I'm just thinking on side of the government, but sometimes you don't wait for the government. You see what you can do on your own side. And so I would recommend parents may hire private teachers who has this 21st century education approach and assessment to really put our words through. That's just one of the ways. That there could be other ways. But I tell you, I believe if the government, you cannot really decide most of all these things alone. But it's a process which we have to kickstart from our own end. We may have to write papers, we have to ask questions, we have to bring in debates, we have to go to the Congress, to the lawmaker, and say, look, we have to revisit this. Technocrats have to come in and all that. So, but on our own side, let's see what we can do. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Just as you said, I was listening to one of this TEDx talk yesterday, and I heard Linda Wayman talked about how she was able to reform a low economy school in Philadelphia. It was very high ranking in crime, and the federal policies were not really favoring the school because it was the schools that were part of the schools in the slum. Nobody really cared about how the people were doing. But she single-handedly, looking out away from the government policies, ensure there was a difference in the school, so much that in the next session, the school ranked among the high-performing school just within a session. And what was that? What was her two? Her two was her voice. That was what she said. He said, if I'm going to lead, then I'm going to lead. And then I showed everyone in the school that if nobody ever loved you, I am here and I love you. And that those two weapons of one, leading boldly, using her voice and showing love to them. There was a third thing she mentioned, and that is escaping excuse. So what? Then what? That was the way she said it. And I think if we can also embrace that, you can also check out that on TEDx. It's on YouTube. Check it out and listen to her. I'm sure we'll be motivated. Her name is Linda Wayman. That's the name.
Linda Wayman.
All right. Thank you so much. I think we've really gone beyond the time, and it has really been interactive.
Oh, okay. I don't know. We've spent so much time.
Yeah, it's been really so interactive that it didn't feel so long, actually.
Thank you.
All right. Just before we wrap it up tonight, I would just like to remind us that we are still taking abstracts for the conference coming up by November. So if you're yet to send in your abstracts, please, this is the right time to do it before the deadline hits and everyone is rushing to beat it. Also, the data book is still available, so you can reach out to us on the website, or you send an email to the email that has always been displayed. I guess that will be all for tonight. Just before we go, let me have the last person that asked the question to please do the closing prayer for us. So I think the last question was from, forgive me, I think I don't are you still there?
Is that not Babatunde? Yeah, I'm
okay,
here.
yes. Okay, I think he's online. So let's take the person that asked the question before him.
Who is that one? Okay, there was a question by Olayemi Oyenike. I'm not sure we saw that one. We can continue the question answering on the platform, on the WhatsApp platform or Telegram. But okay, it seems they are not here.
All right.
Okay, Do Babatunde is here.
Olayemi is here.
Okay, who are we deciding on? Olayemi is here. Do Babatunde is also here.
All right, let's take the closing prayer from Olayemi.
All right.
Okay. Heavenly Lord, we appreciate you for thus far you've been with us.